Yeah, it's always lovely to see a view from a perspective that I haven't considered. I think that's what you're pointing to, David.
Yeah,
Excuse
yeah,
me?
David's good for that. He always brings
Yeah,
another perspective for
but
me. Yeah,
and Magdalena, her view of the world is different to what I often consider, and it adds a richness.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, so many people here do. That's just at the heart of this. Oh, haven't seen that way before. And then it's as you say, Vince, it's fascinating to watch the trigger in oneself sometimes.
Yeah,
For me, what I'm fascinating when I get triggered about a situation, now I really see, and the way I approach it now, it's my mind has drawn a conclusion. Have drawn, have drawn some conclusion, some end, and is judging this conclusion. And if I relax, I can really see that it's impossible to draw conclusion in what's happening. It's really it's very unbearable for the mind because it's but it's just if you look carefully, it's kind of true, And I think this is very interesting. And the people who come and help us and put us or me in an uncomfortable position are very helpful.
yeah. I like that, David. That idea that uh, any conclusion requires us to stop the world, and if we can't stop the world, we can't have a conclusion because things are still moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
So conclusions are impossible. They're just an idea. And like opinions, they're frequently a judgment. Well, there are judgments involved in conclusions.
Well, we can go very deep because to perceive something in order to have an experience, like a defined experience, you have to refer to the past because otherwise you couldn't even register it. You couldn't even understand what it is. So as soon as you have an experience, you are already in the past. You never your experience is literally a projection of the past. I think it's very interesting. So I think the question can be, if I'm in a uncomfortable position or experience or experiencing suffering or anything that is uncomfortable, what is in me that is holding this pattern that kind of want this pattern to be present as it appear. That can be one door of exploration.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. So our first inclination with whatever has made us uncomfortable is to look at whatever it appears has made us uncomfortable. But it's never actually about that. It's about what triggered that. It's always about what's underneath it. Yeah. which is a way of not having a conclusion. If we say, well, that happened and therefore I feel uncomfortable, then that's a conclusion. When we go, well, what is it that triggered that discomfort? It's an open question and there's no conclusion anymore. There's curiosity. So an interesting one again from that perspective. Yeah. Mm. I'm just so curious, Dennis. I've just got to ask, has anything shifted for you since we last spoke? Do you have a different perspective about anything?
Not really, Vince. Hate to disappoint. Nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Some things I would say though is like I heard you say there about this is better than Netflix, and coming to these meetings for me is definitely better than Netflix. I find myself lately just it's like the time in between meetings is just I'm just waiting around to come on here to meet with everybody. Even the last couple of nights trying to watch telly or a movie, just can't do it. It's like what am I doing sitting here watching a movie? The house is on fire. I just can't do it. So I don't know what that means.
Mm.
Still feeling that sort of grumpy, moody, angry energy. I was sitting down for a few minutes before I came on just to relax, and this whole mind just took me away into a previous job where I felt like I was being mistreated, and I was very angry, and I didn't behave the way I thought now I could have behaved. It's like first, I don't even know how to say it. Forsaken. I wasn't true to me. I was bound up in fear and needing a job and money. And, I was imagining if I was a millionaire in that situation, I would just say what needed to be said and be free. But because of all these ideas and beliefs about all this other stuff, I wasn't. And this whole story was just blowing around in my head and I was getting real angry. I'm kind of then getting curious. Okay, so do I just go back to presence? Do I allow this to play out? Do I act on it? Do I what's the work to be done here? Do I have to feel this trauma because I let this anger out? I'm like, okay, you know, so it seems like there's something to do here. And maybe this is blocking awakening, whatever, I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. And what I wanted to hold what someone said, I think you said it, Vince, or someone said it there a minute ago. The paradox of all this, maybe to not say, well, I'm awake or I'm not awake, instead of veering towards I'm not awake or you are awake. Maybe it can be both, and just see what that does. If I live in that space a little bit, just to see, being curious, well, how will that play out? So
Yeah, I like that.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. And it's certainly possible. I mean, the definition awake or not awake, that's kind of crazy bullshit stuff. But there's not much better way to describe it. But definitely know that we can hold conflicting ideas at the same time. That frequently happens. People have two things, and they don't necessarily fight each other. They can live in a parallel, and then the focus can go from one to the other, but they can be both there at the same time. So certainly, if you can be awake and not awake at the same time, um, and if you live in that dimension, as a better way to put it, I don't know, um, then those moments when you are awake will be noticeable. Whereas if you don't live in that dimension and you live in the dimension of not awake, then you don't notice those moments when they appear. And that can happen like that. They can definitely be moments of awake and then back to sleep, or however you want to put it. Moments of awake and then not awake time, for sure.
Yeah. I think what brings up coming here and being, the gentle pushing everyone does and help, and it I'm realizing how much conditioning or beliefs upon beliefs upon beliefs upon beliefs there is around what awakening is. And it's like, oh, I thought I dug a lovely big hole, and you're like, here's the shovel. Keep digging. There's way more beliefs that I have to get out of. Um, like, so I don't really know what awakening is. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what the fuck this is then, because I had all these beliefs about it. And I was thinking back years ago, God, I must have been 20, and I got hold. I can't remember much before this, but I remember getting hold of two books: The Magic of Thinking Big. I can still see it. It's a green book. And the other one was The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And they blew me away. And that to me was like the beginning of seeking, not spiritual seeking, but just seeking. And from that moment to this moment, I'm a seeker.
Mm.
And there's something so driven that, like, yeah, I want to awaken. I want this thing everyone talked about. I want suffering to end. I want panic to go away. I want fear to stop. I want um, the disconnect to die. And the strength to seek is so strong. To hear, like, well, you have to stop seeking. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
don't know how to do that.
Can I ask you a question? Like, often you said before that you had an emotion of anger, and there was this question: what do I need to do? Do I need to do this? I need to do that. I need to express and to feel. Can you perceive that there is the thought I need to do, but often it's connected to a felt sense also?
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you can pay attention to this I need to do about anything. Just feel that it is present. It is an energy. It is there in your experience. And see that even if it is present, it cannot really force you to do anything. And you just notice,
Yeah, well, even as I was speaking, David, that went, and just what came over me was a real sadness. Um, the word need, like, to need is heavy. So,
So to need suggests that there's something missing, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, it does.
And not only, it's not just a want. It's not say that there's something that could be there that doesn't have to be there. It suggests that it's really important. It's a need. It's like it's a matter of survival even. It's a requirement for something, a need. Pretty strong.
Yeah, I kind of feel like something's wrong, and you spend your whole life trying to figure it out or fix it, or
and what is wrong? What is the thing that is wrong?
well, yeah, there's something wrong with me.
Mm.
I'm realizing more just recently that I want this stuff to be seen not as a spiritual journey, because I don't even know what spiritual means. It does have implications about religious stuff, doesn't it? About God and stuff like that, say a spiritual journey. I really want this to be seen as a really basic journey in life. I just love something to be taught to kids in kindergarten at school that that they that stops a whole lot of that negative conditioning that goes on for them, that we all went through, that every single kid goes through. And so what we have is I get, this is just a story that I made up, but we have a birth and an innocence. And then from then on, we have this corruption of that innocence by conditioning that goes on for all of our life. And then at some point, some of us who I would say belong to the group called weirdos, the one I'm in, some of us recognize that there's something wrong. And so we start seeking. Right? Others never recognize that and they never seek. They just keep on going wherever they're going. But those who start seeking start looking to fix up this thing that they recognize was wrong. And they don't quite know what it is that's wrong, but they know that something is wrong. And I guess that's what you're tapping into, Dennis. I believe that something is wrong, and there is something wrong, and that is that conditioning that corrupts our fundamental nature of innocence, of whatever that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're hitting it right in the head, Vince. It just like when you were talking even just a bit earlier, I was like, yeah, it's like my life was destroyed years ago,
Yeah.
and there's a huge sadness around that. And you're trying to get going again. You're trying to go, well, I'll reboot. I'll go again. I'm willing to go again,
Mm.
but
Yeah, there's some bit of conditioning there that's just in the road, that's all. Yeah. And so what this is a process of deconditioning or maybe reconditioning. I don't know. Anyway, that's just playing with words, but yeah.
it definitely, like you said as well, it doesn't. There's nothing spiritual about this stuff. All that spiritual stuff just feels like a million miles away. This is just raw, real life living,
Mm.
showing up in the world.
Yep. So maybe we should
And
have
there's
jumped the idea of waking up. Now that's again, that kind of brings us back to that spiritual thing to a degree. So maybe we need another term for being sufficiently deconditioned to be able to steer ourselves through the rough waters when they turn up.
yeah. When you're talking about awake earlier, I just kind of wrote in my head like it's more like to be free, to
Yes.
be free from and free to, free to feel pain, free from conditioning, free whatever. Just it's not one way or the other, but both. Like a kind of a fearlessness in life, or um, just to be here. There's a noticing of that distance. I hear that in the sixth fetter, the distance that the mind creates with the eyes, and it's all actually flat. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's the eye thing, but there's a distance between me and everything else that's deadening.
Mm. Yeah, well, that's certainly one of the things that happens. And again, I don't know how to refer to it without getting into that spiritual stuff again. But but as 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 we decondition, we also decondition the way the senses have been conditioned. And when that happens, there comes a realization that there is no distance. That's a concept that's overlaid, but that is so basic that it actually corrupts our senses, our physical senses, our sense of sight. It always excites an idea that we call distance. Um, so our sensory experiences can change as a result of deconditioning as well. Oh, that was
Yeah, well,
hard.
it's funny. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was going to make a joke earlier when you were on about. I can't remember what I was thinking in my head. Oh yeah, ever since I started coming to these meetings, my eyesight's got worse, and the paradox of trying to see clearly and your eyesight getting worse. But I don't know if it's a temporary thing, but it just feels like the muscles are relaxing and they're not willing to be as focused and as tight as they were for a long time. They're just like going, take a break. So I need these all the time now for close up stuff, reading and phones.
Yeah,
What what these talks and these gatherings give me is that connection or that ability to connect or that opportunity to connect.
yeah,
Um, and it can be really bruising with the ego because afterwards the ego can really come in and who do you think you are? What are you doing? What do you think you're? You know, God, all this sort of stuff. And it's like there's a freedom in being who you truly are and saying what you really feel like saying
yeah, absolutely.
versus being concerned about how you might be perceived
Mm.
and thought of. And I still have that. Like even if I put something on Facebook, I'll look a couple of hours later to see has anyone looked at it, have they said anything? Oh, what would they think of me? What would people think of me? And I'd love to be free of that.
Yeah.
But maybe you never do become free of it.
Oh, you do, definitely do. Yeah. Answer me this one, or consider it at least. I don't really need an answer, but for me, in these groups, the sense of connection, the 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 ability, not ability, but the nature of the spontaneity, the authenticity, and the connection and the intimacy, that's that collapses a distance. There's, you go outside and there's somebody else standing really close to you in the line at the supermarket, and even though that you could reach out and touch them, they're a million miles away from you.
Hmm.
But here it's like, oh, every one of you guys are kind of in me, in a I don't know how to put it, I don't know how to describe it, but there is that collapse of distance. That's not, but even that distance thing is a concept, but get what I mean? There's a closeness here. So closeness is a better way to put it, that there isn't with the person in the line at the supermarket. Or even if we've been friendly with the cashier, there's still not that same kind of closeness. So the inverse of that closeness is further. There's no word for it, is it? Farthest. It's closeness or farthest, or
Yeah.
it's distance, isn't it? It's kind of metaphorical distance anyway.
But I think as an agreement, as I see it, as an agreement, when you come on here to get real, to be real, to meet, whereas in the world it's all whatever. It's the game of you know say something but not too much. Like nobody really wants to have a real conversation about anything real. It's just whatever the news, and yeah, it's all just disinteresting. That's why I think movies and everything has just become really disinteresting. It's like I can't find interest in anything now. Um, yeah,
But why are you open? I mean, where do you see distance?
Um, like it feels like visually, definitely distance. I see distance. Um,
Okay. Do you agree that right now in your computer, if I hold this behind me, you will have this sense that this is behind me, right? And I'm more near of you, of the screen, you know? Is that
yeah, well, actually,
correct?
when you do, well, no, because
Mm.
I can see that it's just movement on the screen. It's not further behind. There's the
Okay,
illusion of
so
it being further behind. It's just white on screen, but the phone is in front of me. Now I can say, well, that's just phone on screen of eyeballs, but I'm still making distance. I've heard people talk about this flatness. I don't experience it, but I know what you're getting at.
I mean, forget this flatness. I'm just okay. So even if there is some kind of impression that is behind, there's also this awareness. No, this is just a flat screen. So can you see first that it's not one or the other? It's just kind of both in a way. Of course, it's flat, and of course, this is behind me because it's not in front of me. So what what I'm saying this because the exploration I will invite you is not at the level of the screen of this is behind, this is in front. Of course, obviously, it is behind, it is in front. But we talk about the flatness of the screen. Everything is at the same distance of you. So now tell me, how far is your experience, your sight from you? How far it is? 1 centimeter, 10 centimeter, 1 meter?
Yeah,
If there is a
that
distance.
makes me look, and I can't necessarily find a distance between what the eyes are seeing and me.
Forget the eye. The eye is an idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
When you think about it, just think about it in terms of experience. Like you don't see any distance within
yeah. In
you, whatever
experience,
you
there's no
are,
distance.
and the experience of vision.
Yeah,
Correct? This is
I can see it. I can see it that yeah, in the experience of seeing, I am the seeing. There's no distance between me and the seeing. Um, and I have to have a belief. Yeah, but the bin is over there, and now my hands moved out. But that's all on the screen of seeing, which is zero distance from me. But I don't even know what me is to point at me. There's just seeing. Now there's
yeah,
talking.
exactly. But you see, you can play with this. Forget who you are. Forget if there is a me. Forget all of those nonsense of there is no self, awakening, consciousness, you are that, you are this. Doesn't matter. You can really explore. Okay, well, of course, I perceive distance, obviously, but
Mm.
sight, it's another level of sensitivity, right? It's something else, but it's not nothing. It's something. It's an exploration. You can play with this
Yeah,
with sight, with sensation. How far is your body of you? How far is that sensation from you? And you can play this with people, how, and thoughts,
yeah,
how
yeah,
far
yeah,
it's, and this is a quality. If you bring this quality in your exploration, maybe it can be fun.
yeah. No, I agree, and thanks for doing that, David, because it it helped that you were pointing and that you were guiding, because like you could be at that for weeks getting nowhere, and it just took you to go, well, yeah, there is distance, but there's not just that as well. Like, yeah, that's behind, that's in front. Now look, and now when I'm looking, yeah, everything is on the screen of seeing, and then
Exactly.
pointing
Yeah.
the question, well, how much distance is there between seeing and you? So I'm like, well, where's me? Seeing is meing, seeing, that same thing. And then my hands are moving out. I'm like, okay, so distance. but still on the screen of seeing, which is as close to me, whatever that is, as it can be. So yeah, there's something you're kind of going, oh, I'm looking sideways at it now. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly. And I think one door is not one or the other. You will always have a sensation of deepness, because
Mm,
otherwise you kind of feel blind, because it doesn't. But this is not where the exploration has to take place. It's
yeah.
exactly what you are talking about right now. So trust this, trust this sensitivity that you are having at this very moment.
Dennis, can you hear
Hi,
me? Okay, there we go.
hi, Paul.
You got an ink pen in your hand? Is that an ink pen in your hand? Put it right up in front of your eyes. All right. That's near, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now put it out arm's length. All right, let's say that's far. Okay. What's the difference?
It's moved across my screen of seeing.
Nope. Look again. Nothing to do with moving. Put it right up by your eyes. Right up, right there. Now put it out. Out far. What's the difference? In experience, not thought.
In the experience of seeing, I want to say there's no difference.
Bring it up close to your eyes. What percentage of your visual field does the ink pen occupy right now? Top to bottom.
Three percent.
Really? Look again. Bring it closer. What percentage of the visual field, up and down, does it occupy?
What do you mean up and
About
down, Paul?
from top of your visual field to the bottom of your visual field, what percentage from top to bottom does the ink pen occupy?
Oh, okay, yeah. 80%.
All right, now go far. What percentage of your visual field, top to bottom, does the ink pen occupy?
30%.
Do you see the fiction? Distance is only a percentage of the visual field occupied by the same object. There is no distance. It's just a learned percentage. You see it?
Not yet, but I'll keep playing with it.
Well, just look at it this way. It's pretty straightforward. The further away something is, the smaller it appears to you.
Correct.
Yeah,
The closer it is, the larger it appears. And the
yeah.
consequence is that we interpret something small compared to a memory of it being close as being further away.
Right.
So if you're standing right next to the car, it appears big. And if the car's 100 meters away, it appears smaller. Right.
Right.
And we take the actual experience of bigger and smaller and we interpret that as distance
Correct.
in our experience. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Is it the overlay of thinking that gives it distance?
Yes, you got it. Absolutely.
Right. It's a fiction. You can go to YouTube and type in near and far, and you will see children's programming come up with puppets. I watched my grandchildren learn this, and the puppet runs way down at the end of the screen. He said, "This is far." And then the puppet runs right back up, right by the camera, and says, "This is near." And they run way back down there, and they keep doing this. And the puppet starts complaining he's tired of running and everything. But that's the way the kids learn it. It's a fiction. It's learned. It's not, you were born without distance perception. I've said this before. It's the same way a mother lion teaches a cub to hunt. She teaches him to stay down in the grass when the antelope is small. They stalk, they stalk, they stalk. When the antelope is large in the visual field, she jumps. That's how they learn to hunt. She doesn't have to tell them anything. She shows them.
So what happens then? Just staying curious with this, because I'm stationary. There's a sense, well, okay, well, if I move, I'm going to walk into the wall over there. Therefore, there's distance, because when I move, I'm going to eventually hit that wall. So what's happening there?
Nothing. You can see through the illusion of distance, and you're not going to walk into walls. I mean, unless you're just clumsy.
Well,
The fiction is going to
experience-
remain. The fiction is going to remain. What happens is your sense of location disappears. It's not like everything where people say, well, it becomes two-dimensional. When the collapse actually happens, there's no two dimensions, because even 2 dimensions requires you to be here. And then from here, there's up and down. And from here, there's left and right. When the collapse actually happens, there's no longer here. There's just everything, which is the way kids experience. It's just this. But it's a fiction. You can kind of play around with it, and David was kind of pointing to it. If you just kind of, you can go outside and look at the trees and the sky beyond, and just kind of imagine that it's all right in front of you, like you have your nose kind of up on a landscape painting, and it becomes a lot more real. You're actually messing around with Fetter 6 and 7 here. We're probably going to confuse everybody. We like to say we like to say we're going to stay around Fetter 1 here. Go ahead.
That's it. Yeah, I just heard Pernilla on the video today say, "Come on to Vince Sunday night or Monday morning for Vince," and because he deals with Fetter 1, 2, and 3. So I was,
yeah. Well, if y'all hadn't gotten into it, I wouldn't have said anything about it. But it's an easy fiction, though. It's actually an easy fiction to overcome.
But it's that paradox again. It's like I'm trying to stay curious and kind of go, can it be both? Can it be?
Yes, can.
Because the mind's expecting something different. You see, that the mind's expecting something to shift and then it to be flat, and then I get what you're pointing at. So when that happens, that would be great.
This is a fantasy. This is completely. I mean, this is not my experience. I mean, how can we even function if you don't have some kind of 3D
Distance.
perspective and orientation? You know, even though it's me or not. But it's that shift in understanding what is actually happening. And what Paul was talking about the world, you can experience when you are driving. When you are driving, your mind is telling you that you are going very fast and the world is still outside, of course. But your direct experience is that everything is moving, but you are not moving.
Yes.
This is your actual experience. I'm going fast, meaning everything is moving around very fast. And the mind is saying, what is moving fast is still, and what is still is moving fast, which is completely nonsense because it contradicts your direct experience. So that's why I think it's it's
And when that,
where
when
you
you
were
see that,
about your sensitivity,
and when you see that clearly, David, do you then kind of, is it like the Matrix where you realize there's just ones and zeros and nothing is real, or that all just more shite?
The fiction can remain. The fiction of distance, you're still going to have the fiction of distance. You just see, it just doesn't feel, it doesn't have the feeling of being real. It's like seeing through the illusion of self. It just doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. You can still act like it's there. You still act like it's there, but it's just, you see that it's not really there. It's the same with the fiction of distance. You see through it. You see it's not really there, but as a practical matter, you behave as if it's still there. I mean, you don't lose your sense of, you don't walk into walls and stuff.
Yeah, why are we looking at this? Like, what's the problem with distance?
There's
You
no
brought it up.
There's no
Yeah,
problem. There's no problem. Look, what it is you change a delusion into an illusion. And guess what? Your experience is the same, but the consequences of the experience can be different as a result. Right? So you never you know you need that illusion of distance to operate in the world. Right? It's like the self thing, once you find no watermelon in the fridge, you don't need to keep looking. But the fact that you know that there's none there changes the way you experience things. The fact that
yeah,
when you know that it's your mind that creates this illusion of distance, right? Suddenly you go, well, that's a useful one, but it isn't the way it actually is, right? And that openness changes your perspective on a whole lot of other things as well. The so what part of it is that it permeates everything, gets everything, because nothing is separate. So we're talking about the sense of sight here, like it's separate, right? But what we're seeing is that the sense of sight was a really small part, and a really big part was what the mind did with that sense of sight.
right. I get it now, because what I can do is if I can play around and see it more, then I can relay that onto the sense of self and how the mind is doing something with that.
Exactly, and everything else.
Yeah, because it
and
feels
I
like
want
this
to
is
say,
nice to play with, but it's not as important. The important one is to see through the sense of self, the one I keep going on about.
Well,
Yeah,
even that, once you've seen through that, that's no longer important either.
well, I mean, I invited you into this exploration because what I understood was there was something wrong. I feel disconnected. I feel I'm distant of whatever. And I
mm.
wanted just to not to really undo vision, is to have this state, this sensitivity of how to explore distance. So you can, when you feel this sensation, I'm disconnected, I don't know, whatever happened, you can have this, okay, so I know how to explore this.
Yeah. It's like I felt like oh yeah, I could go into a counselor for 10 hours to be listened to, and he just said, "Look at the distance, look at the pen, look at there's no distance," and I feel so much better, just because everything's flat, or I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah. So one of the ramifications that could come from that is that when you recognize that this visual, this sensory input, right, is being contaminated by the mind. When I say contaminated, it's being adjusted by the mind, or it's being added to by the mind to give you this sense of distance. That
Yeah,
exactly the same process goes on with this sense of emotional distance that you have between you and other people, right? Because that is also a result of the mind. Take away that, and you suddenly start to feel like other people are, well, at an extreme, other people are in you. You are in other people.
Is emotion one of the? It's not one of the five senses, though, is it? No, because I
Well,
remember trying to find myself in the senses, and this emotion one feels a bit slippier or trickier. So I'm not sure how to work with that one.
well, it's, an emotion is like a feeling. An emotion is sensation with stories. If
So
you,
it's thought again. It's kind of lathered all
The
over.
way the way you can think about it, it's emotion is where sensing meet thinking. When both
Yeah.
meet, this is emotion. This is what you call an emotion. So it's just a way of approaching it.
Yeah, emotions don't seem to be impacted by visual, audio.
well, they are definitely they are.
You know, and as soon as I
But
said audio, I went, "Oh, music definitely does."
I am under the feeling that now we are shifting it to more conceptual thing, and I think it was more interesting to just stay with
Yeah,
the actual literal experience, exploring your experience as it is. I think it's it's more
Yeah.
clear and direct. Otherwise, you will go into confusion trying to understand. And
Yeah, look at another fiction. Dennis, your ink pen. It's my ink pen, right? Hold it up. And you said that's my ink pen, right?
yeah. Well, yeah, it's my ink pen. Yeah, I have it here. Yeah,
Okay, and that feels like one thing, doesn't it? My ink pen. I mean, you say it and it sounds like one sound, my ink pen. It feels like one thing, doesn't it?
yeah. I have possession of it here. You don't have
Okay,
it over
well,
there.
right, right. Well, the language. All right, so there's an ink pen there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where is the my, which is a thought, an experience, other than as a thought?
Yeah, it's a comforting thought.
Well, can that thought, my, in and of itself, forget definitions, can that thought, my, own that ink pen? I'll repeat the question. Can just the thought, my, own that ink pen?
No, the thought can't.
Okay. So there's an ink pen, but there is no my other than a thought. And the thought is just a fiction about the ink pen, isn't it?
So there's just ink pen in hand. Um,
Just an ink pen.
yeah, I'm just contemplating the my feeling.
Just the my thought. Feeling doesn't prove anything. Just the my thought. Can the my own the ink pen?
Yeah, no, without the my thought, there's sensation.
There's just the ink pen, right?
There's the ink pen and sensation.
What owns the ink pen?
I feel like saying the ink pen owns the ink pen. If anything owns the ink pen owns the ink pen. Because the ink pen is the ink pen.
So what is owning?
Owning is being, maybe. The ink pen is being the ink pen, so owning is being.
Owning is an idea about possession, isn't it? It's an idea that includes exclusivity.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't know what owns the ink pen. And I'm now questioning if it's even an ink pen. That's another label.
Yeah, there is just that, whatever that is. But the idea of owning it is can only be an idea. Can you find anything other than an idea about what owning is? Who owns
What
it?
if there was no word my? What would own? What in experience would be ownership?
But there wouldn't be ownership.
So without thought, is there ownership?
No, no.
What's seeing the ink pen, Dennis?
In experience right now, seeing is seeing the ink pen or the object or the thing or whatever. I feel like I want to give it to somebody. Here, do you want it?
Little
I
fear
feel like
coming up
it's.
there.
I feel like it's. I feel like a 3-year-old. Who wants the pen?
Let's just move this a little bit. Uh, who owns the body with the label Dennis?
Okay, hold on.
That's a bit more serious than the ink pen, isn't it?
Well, straight away there's a sense of connected to the body,
Okay, yeah.
whereas there's no connection to the ink pen. I can drop it.
Right.
Well, I know they're all thoughts.
So what did you say about ownership a moment ago? So when I ask you who owns the body, it's a rather ridiculous question, isn't it? Because ownership is just an idea about something. So there's no actual ownership of the body. There is just the body. Would you agree with that? But
I
yet,
just want to take a.
sorry, go on.
I was just going to take a look. I don't want to agree too quickly
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be conceptual about it.
good, good.
It can be a little bit easier if you use the word sensations. Because using the word body, it's already a lot of assumption behind this. But a sensation, it's more light. I don't know what to think about that, Vince.
Well, I could see how sensations make up what we call a body, but sensations are just.
Is it my sensation? Put it that way.
Yeah, I wanted to say they're reporting to me, but I didn't say that about the visual feel or the pen. So I don't want to be just jumping back on that conditioning again.
Can the thought my own that sensation?
No, sensation is here regardless of whether the thought "my" is here or not.
What I was leading to, what I didn't quite get there with you, was that when you say this is my body, that there will be an additional sensation as a result of the word my.
Yeah. And I'm intuiting that to be a sort of contraction.
Mm-hmm. It would be, for sure. But can you see that the word my, which we already see as just a word, it's a concept, it's an idea, that the word my has a response that is an actual sensation in the body. So that sense of ownership of the body, this is my body. When you say that, that does bring about another sensation, which adds to the delusion of a self.
Yeah, it feels like it solidifies sensation because I could feel the heart and the chest when Paul was pointing a bit earlier about the not being a my, and it was like that's why I said, well, the sensation, because it's like something was lifting, that there was sensation of vulnerability, sort of a without the my, there's a different sensation.
Mm, mm.
And the same process used for thinking also. The same process that we went through the illusion of distance from seeing be applied to thinking. Is there a distance between me and thoughts?
Yeah, now this is a good one because I've always had that next thought, which is thoughts report to me and who am I. So that's the one that's not being seen. So there's thought.
I
And
asked,
sorry, what was your question?
There wasn't a question. I was just like wondering about the same process that we went through about seeing that there is no distance and distance is just an illusion can be
That's it. So it's a
used.
distance. Yeah.
Yeah, can be
Between
used the same
me and
thing.
thought.
Yeah, between the thought. Because I also had this problem, like I talked about, like I saw there is a distance between I am aware of thought, and then you mentioned thoughts are reporting to me. But it's funny that this morning also, I don't know what happened because of the conversation we had before, or I was just became aware of this illusion of distance and everything that I consider distance. And the same thing, I extended it myself to thoughts. And then because I had this illusion, I am aware of thoughts. But then I thought, okay,
Which is a thought.
is this, yeah, exactly. That's like, is there an awareness separate from thoughts with a borderline that is assessing these thoughts, like measuring them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a dividing line?
So I could see with the visual that the visual was just seeing, and then switch the thoughts. So my direct experience right now, thoughts are there.
is there really a pull or push toward thoughts, or this pull and push, they just appear? Like that thing that we consider I am assessing these thoughts are reporting to me. Isn't it just the way they appear, another thought is appearing?
Are they my thoughts, Dennis? Or just thoughts? Just an ink pen.
We've already assessed my as a thought. So my thoughts are thoughts about thoughts. So
Yeah, they're just thoughts in the experience. They're thoughts.
Yeah.
My thought is just another thought, but it's a more juicy. No, that's another thought.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and we're off to the races.
yeah. And you said thoughts are just there, but in fact they're there and then they're not there. That's a reality as well, isn't it? That they're there for such a short time that you can't even measure how long they stay around for. They come and they go. Yeah. Is that your experience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very quick. Yeah, it's like when you're being curious about it, you're like, where even is the thought? What?
Yeah. It
what
doesn't stop. It never stops. It appears and it's gone. Boom, boom. Right. Like that.
Oh, Chanel, I've just realized that's just because I was like, what notices the thought? Now I'm back thinking again. Like it's just more thoughts.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, now you're getting really close. Now, I asked you once before, can a thought think? Tell me what your answer was. Can a
No, and
think?
that's clear to me. Thoughts can't think.
Right. So if thoughts can't think, how can thoughts report to you? Or is that just another thought?
Yeah, that's I've been using that thought for years. Vince, that's one of my specialities. Yeah, yeah. It's a useful pointer, but it's bullshit. It's another thought. Mm.
Isn't it absolutely impossible to get away from thoughts? The influence of thought is just so pervasive. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, it's a useful point. No, hold on a second. So I said it's a useful point, it's bullshit, and then I was about to say, but that's just a thought. But sometimes you can be talking, and it's not like there's thoughts. Is opening your mouth a thought?
Yeah. My experience is I open my mouth and words come out, and I can't say that I think about those words before they come out. They just come out.
Yeah. No, there's a mechanism that feels different when it's a thought. Whereas right now I'm just talking and I'm not thinking.
So talking happens.
Talking is just the activation of the vocal cords.
Yeah, no, there's subtle thoughts coming in about talking and thinking and thinking and talking, and they're trying to trip me up again.
Yep. But they're additional to the act of talking, aren't they?
Yeah, they're before and after, and they're all around, and
And not really even connected. They connect themselves, but they're not actually required. They're just there.
I want to try another line of exploration because you said that sometimes you feel like the comment of other people and it's affecting you. And now that you are in that space, can you see that nothing comes from outside, that there's no outside?
something has to happen internally to be affected, but even that feels weird saying like internally. What's internal versus external?
Exactly. Exactly, yeah.
So where is the effect?
It's another idea about near and far, is it? Internal and external, near and far, big and small, all ideas.
I'm giving everything meaning. Like I was imagining someone saying, "Oh, you're fucking useless," and I'm like, okay, there's just sounds, there's visual, there's whatever coming out their mouth, and where does that get meaning? Something has to happen here
Mm.
for that to.
And what is it that happens there? Do you see that?
I don't know what happens. Is it a thought believed? But I don't know that it's a thought believed unless it's really quick, or is it just an immediate contraction because of conditioning that a word is spoken and the conditioning is you pressed the button.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting one, and I what a way I see it is that we have stories probably back when we were young that have been around so long that we no longer need the stories. We could go straight to the reaction to the story, the response to the story, right? So that the trigger is that we don't experience the story anymore, but we are still experiencing the effect of it. But it's just become ingrained. It's held in the
That feels
blood.
like the mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you see through that, Vince? How do you
Well, it depends. If you recognize that it is the result of a story, that it can often be enough to let go of it. But sometimes you've got to go and find the actual story or get a bit close to the actual story, depending on how deep it is. But in most cases, you don't. You just need to recognize that it is the result of a story, even though we can't see what the story is anymore. And if that's clear to you, that's enough often for it to dissipate.
I think it's what a good image is like if you imagine or if you think about thoughts, not like separate entity, but it's like an activity. It's kind of like an endless stream of it's an activity, an ongoing activity, and sensing is the same. And when there is a reaction, there is some kind of blending. It's like if you mix water and oil together, they kind of shift and become kind of somehow messy and everything. And I think
yeah.
just to perceive and approach this like it's an ongoing process, and there's nothing really to solve or to find out. It's just to see that it's just both are present and they ripple together. Thinking activate sensing and sensing activate thinking, and it's a whole mess if you try to figure it out what is happening. But if you've been with the sensitivity of what is actually present, it can really be like a pleasurable exploration, even if the story is a drama and the sensation is painful.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to start intellectualizing it all now and wondering what it means and what's yeah. I'll just go back into study again.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
I feel like it's a bit out of my depth in a way, but when I was 21, I had this experience where I disappeared into the kitchen sink. And I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I disappeared into the kitchen sink and the walls and the cooker. And so talking about distance, I mean, one couldn't carry on like that, could one? Because it has gone too far. But it's never happened again. And so what was that? That was an experience that where I actually experienced there is no difference. I know there's no distance. but I was actually no different to the kitchen sink or the wall or the cooker. I was the wall, the kitchen sink, and the cooker.
Mm.
I just thought I'd mention it, talking about distance.
So you could draw
And,
inferences from that, but that would just be mind stuff again. So the reality the actuality was that there was that experience,
yeah.
right? And we can overlay that with all sorts of explanations or descriptions. What will it achieve? I don't know, to do that. But I would like to say that your senses suddenly dropped their conditioning for a moment.
Yeah.
What it brings up for me, though, to continue the inquiry for whoever wants in the moment, is the statement, I'm here. And then to question whether I'm actually here, is here just another thought, like Paul was doing, or like you guys are doing?
Yep.
One of the things that comes up for me is that frequently when we ask questions like that, there is the implication that that if this is not true, then the opposite must be true, and that's not the case, because
Yeah.
we're just in words here. So to say you are here or to say that you are not here, I mean, neither of those make any sense. There is just this. That makes sense.
Just this. No location.
So what? So, could I just say, so what I experienced was that I am everything.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it. It can feel with no location, there's a sense of aliveness to everything in the field. And yes, that's what when that, I think it was in his regard that I can't ever say, when he early in his teachings, and when he says I am that, that's exactly what he's pointing to, is I am, or I am this. Now later on in life, he actually corrected himself and said, well, that was actually, even though that seemed real, he said that was still a form of a subtle identification. That when he said, I am that, he was saying, I am experience. And he corrected that later in life and said, there is no sense of identification. And what he said later in life is, there's just this. It's not happening to anyone. It's not happening for anyone. There's no one here to experience it. It's just this. And you can attribute a lifelike quality to it, but there's no identification with it. But that was much later in his life, and people get confused over that. They take the I am that and run with it and say, oh, he's identifying his experience. He was, but later he changed on that.
So you could even break that one down, to say that there is just this. Every one of those words is wrong.
Still.
Yeah.
Still. You're just going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But this is the way to go, like when Dennis, you say, but what is this here? What do I mean when I say here? What is the experience of here? It is just thought, it's just sensation, and when I explore what is a sensation, where it is, at a distance, what it is, how can I define it? And there you go.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, but this is really helpful, though, to be here. There, I said it again. To peel off these beliefs in a way that with the guidance. So, like, I'm still trying to, because I've been listening. There's a sense of, well, what will happen when I peel off here? Now I'm going to peel off here. I'm here. here is just a thought. And there's a feeling of.
Did you say what will happen?
I'm curious what will happen as I peel off.
Exactly. When question arises with time, you are in thought and concept already. So
yeah,
just go back into because time it's literally thought. So when there is this curiosity, a curiosity that is in direct exploration of what is here, this sensation, it's one thing. The other is what will happen, what was, and this you are in thought and concept again.
Yeah, no, but I'm only saying that for the purpose of the video. Like I'm looking right now, when here is seen as just a thought.
If you had never learned the words here and there would just be this.
I will just, maybe it can be helpful. Time is thought and space is sensation. If you kind of explore it that way. So when you explore here, you often hear what we mean. It's a physical space, a room. So the way to explore it is explore what do you know about the room, which is often just a visual field, sound because there's some kind of echo, and sensation, but mainly is visual field and sensation. And the main experience we have about a supposed space is sensation. I feel in a body, this object outside and sensing. So there is yes an exploration of here in the conceptual, but there is an exploration of here like directly. I'm here in that chair. Well, what do you mean by sitting in that chair? What is your experience of sitting in that chair? What is this sensation? What is this sensation? You see? Can you see the difference?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said what you said, because that actually was what I was doing when that thought here, peel that off straight away. Visual field, sensations,
Exactly.
more concepts about chair, bum on chair, all just thoughts. So visual field, colors, sensations. So there's just those when there's no here, there's just those things. And sensations are, again, it feels like this needs a bit, dare I say, a bit of time, but sitting in this, like I just want to sit here and explore it.
Yeah, that's good, Dennis. I was just thinking that we need to give other people a chance to bring anything up as well. So that was a bit of synchronicity. You're saying you need that time. It's perfect. Yeah. And what I want to kind of just point to is that what kind of the purpose of these groups isn't really to wake people up. My intention anyway, whatever that is that turned up, was to help people have a better life. And so sometimes that's about waking up, but often it's about reducing suffering or eliminating suffering or whatever. So yeah, I'm in this new place where I'm trying to kind of make it like about ordinary people, about ordinary stuff, and less about spiritual awakening, which is the same thing, but I just wanted to change the terminology and the focus for that. So yeah, please, if somebody else has got something they'd like to explore, let's get to it.
Can I just ask one more thing? I know I've spoken already, but so it makes me wonder, talking the way about it all, what's the point of wanting anything to be different to how it is? I mean, when I walk into the other house where my so-called partner is, and I see he's got all the things from the his tool shop under the table, and I say, and I look and I say, I don't like those things under the table. And he says, well, it saves me going over to my tool shed to get them. And so what do I say? Okay, so there are his tools are now under the table, and therefore, well, why should I want it to be any different? Because it just is.
Exactly.
You know, so I have to live with it like that, or
No,
what?
no. The point is that there is a moment of suffering for you when you want it to be different. So that's an opportunity for you to look at what that triggers in you. So is it a sense of tidiness that you hold important, or is it a sense of place that you hold important, or whatever it is that it brings up in you? That's where the value is for you. It's not about the tools. It's about what they bring in you when you see them there, because you have this story that they don't belong there. They belong somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
but
that's
also,
where your suffering comes from.
I mean, I'm very visual, so to me, it's sort of, it doesn't look right.
Yeah, and it actually hurts. Eh?
Yeah, it's not beautiful. I like things to look a little bit lovely, you know.
So there is what we would describe as self-induced suffering, which is also an opportunity to lose that, to change.
You mean so I could just say, okay, we keep the gardening shears under the table.
It's not a matter of just saying it. It's a matter of feeling different about it. And you can't tell yourself to feel different about it, can you? But you can discover what triggers that. What does it rest on? What is the belief you hold that is causing you to feel that?
I suppose that's because everybody else would probably agree with me. And if they come to visit and they see all these things under the table, I want to say, oh, they're not mine.
That just makes it stronger for you that everybody else agrees with you.
Yeah, it makes it more difficult. So then I have to say, doesn't matter what anyone thinks.
Right. But again, it's not just the words, it's what you believe.
Yeah.
It's your relationship to those words, your relationship to the thoughts and the ideas that you have about that. So it comes back to something that's deeply ingrained in you.
But then people talk about rights, you know, oh, I have a right to have something looking.
Yeah, that's bullshit story, that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because that's what people would say. But you got a right to have it. It's your home as well.
Well, that certainly adds to the suffering, doesn't it? Big time.
Yeah, it does add to the suffering big time. Yeah. So basically, I'm learning a lot.
Yes, we sometimes live in situations where we get lots and lots and lots of opportunity to learn. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel better about it all now.
I've got 2 questions.
You go.
That popped up. David, can you finish that exercise when you said something about where Dennis thought the external can affect his internal emotions? That one just stopped halfway, and I was curious what about the end.
Wasn't really an exercise. It was kind of a kind of a fact in a way. I mean, the belief that the emotion that someone is feeling outside, like someone coming to me is very angry, right, and scream at me, right? Somehow. And I start to feel an emotion here. The mind start to build a story that I feel this emotion because this person out there is doing whatever I will see. So the mind put the cause of the emotion, it put it outside, it put it on the person, on the world, on the mosquitoes, on whatever, and everything. But the cause is never, in my experience, and the exploration can be that you can see that there is no connection between both, but in thought. Even if someone come and slap me, there will probably be some kind of sensation appearing. But the emotion, it's happening in me. The slap don't cause emotion. So it was just this kind of point I was expressing.
So if someone's yelling at you and you feel something, I don't know, fear.
Okay.
What I got from your explanation is it's the direct experience is you see it as one motion. But then thought overlays it as, oh, that's causing this.
Exactly.
I guess there's a desire there to not feel that emotion of fear, just to have that dude yell at you, and there's a desire of just be like, just okay, cool. There's a sound there. I guess, is that possible?
I'm not saying that I'm not having emotion at all. I'm just saying the cause and effect is a thought. It's a belief.
Right.
You don't experience this. Do you? Like right now, if I say to you, you are beautiful,
Thank you.
and you start to feel something, did I put this emotion in you? Did it come from me?
No. Where did it come from then?
I don't know.
Yeah, it just appeared. It's one movement.
You tell me. This is the exploration. It is interesting, right?
Huh. So yes, so my answer is yeah, it's all a one movement.
Okay. What do you mean by one movement? How do you experience it?
You go, you're beautiful, and then I don't know, there's elation straight away. Yeah, that's it. And I guess that where the suffering comes in, if we talked about it in a negative term, is that shouldn't be happening. Yeah, I guess.
Well, if I say you are ugly now,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel something,
Yeah.
but it's the same. I mean,
Right.
did I put this emotion or whatever you feel? No, it's the same. Everything is happening in your field of experience.
Okay.
I mean, okay, I don't know. I mean, I'm saying it, but
But yeah, I agree.
it's really this exploration. I mean, this is how I live. This is my experience. This is, I don't know. It seems to me that it's like this for everyone, but maybe I'm wrong.
So I had a belief that when you are supposedly through the whole thing, you don't feel shitty when someone calls you ugly, because
Well,
there's no one to be called ugly, and it's just something happening in experience. Yeah.
first of all, I don't claim to be at the end of anything. And second, I suggest that stop thinking about it, just find out. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but you will never know. You have to find out by yourself. If there is something to transcend, really.
So a quick exploration of it might be, if David says you're beautiful, there is a certain response to that. If he says you're ugly, there's a different response to that. If he says the sky is blue, there's probably a totally different response. You know, if he says he's sitting there, you go, so what? You know, that's a different response. But the first two, the responses had to do with something, ideas you had about yourself. So there is a degree of selfing there, but we're logically analyzing it. We're logically coming to a conclusion, right, which is different from your actual experience. The actual experience is of one thing. There is the sound and there is the response, and there's no separation between them. But in fact, there is a separation, and one of them is that the ideas you have about yourself. Of course, you're going to feel good if somebody says you're beautiful, and you're going to feel not so good if they say you're ugly. But when you recognize that that's all just sound, and if he says the sky is blue, that's all just sound, right? It's your thoughts and what you believe about those thoughts that create the response in you.
But I see that it's just all just sound.
But the sound doesn't create the response. It's the meaning you apply to the sound that creates the response. Sound is just sound. So let's say you're fully enlightened, and somebody says you're ugly, and there's no response, no negative response, or somebody says you're beautiful and there's no positive response, or somebody shouts at you, you know, and they're shouting at you to watch out for that bus that's going to run over you. Right? Would there be a response to that, or would there just be no response, the same as there's no response about whether you're ugly or beautiful? Some part of you would discern a sense of warning in the shouting at about the bus coming. So you would have a response because it would be appropriate to have a response. But is it appropriate for you to have a response of elation when they say you're beautiful, or depression when they say you're ugly? Right? So we're not talking about absolutes here. We're talking about, you know, some subtleties as well.
Yeah, because like the experience is neutral, but the activity of thinking is projecting meaning. Can you see this?
Yeah, but then how do I see it all, but then how come it's still happening? How do I see through it completely?
What do you mean by completely?
To just see that it's referring to a self that isn't there.
Well,
And
you're having the response because there is still beliefs there. Right? There's still some cleaning up to do.
I see. So I can't do it in the moment that someone calls me ugly. I have to think of it in the closet somewhere.
No, you could take it back to the lab in the closet if you like. But if it actually happens in real life, that is an opportunity for you to see the connection between a belief. You probably don't realize that belief is there until something triggers it. And if
Can we try now? Like I'm seeing it now.
Okay.
So David called me ugly.
Right. Where's the feeling in your body?
It's kind of like back there. It's kind of like a sunken feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But you did say thank you when he said you're beautiful.
I was just trying to be a smartass, but
So that was a social response, but yeah, okay.
Okay. And then now how do I see the belief?
you don't need to see what the belief is. You just need to see that a belief exists. Right. So what are we talking about when you're ugly? Okay, so you're an ugly bastard sitting there. You're as ugly as anything. You know, you look like a cow's ass. How does that make you feel?
Yep, same feeling comes up.
Oh, did you still feel bad? Or did your mind go, oh, that's just Vince playing around with?
It's a bit of both, but then it was just like, there's something still there.
Okay, right.
Maybe he's right. Maybe he's right. This is the thought.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But even you playing around and saying thank you, that was still a response.
Mm. So you don't look to fix something. That's the wrong tool out of the toolbox. The idea isn't that there is something that needs fixing. The idea is that there is recognizing that something is there.
Okay, it's there now. What just came to mind was like ugly and beautiful. They're just thoughts and they're just concepts which are made up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So how did you
This
learn
is
to feel bad about ugly and good about beautiful? When did
Yeah,
those get embedded in you?
I guess from early age, whereas the beautiful
And
get what they want.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff, isn't it?
Mm.
Society, a lot of society runs on that. So maybe it's going to take more than one exposure to that for you to see the fallacy of that. Do you see how to see that it's your mental belief, and kind of beliefs are a bit tricky, aren't they? Because they're mental, but they go a bit deeper than just a thought. They're a certain kind of thought, a belief. But that's embedded in you, and every time you see that that's there embedded in you, it kind of gets a bit looser. So because it's such a powerful one, it may take more than one exposure to it. So you'll go around in life and you'll be looking forward to somebody calling you ugly because that's an opportunity to see it, you know.
Every day.
And even if they do it in jest, it can still excite that thing. So it's like that sense of ownership that we were talking about with Dennis before, that sense of me and ownership, right? That's deeply embedded in us. It's so when we see through it, we don't always see all the way through it. You know, there are bits that hang off that can be there for a while, and it can take, you know, sometimes it can take repeated times, or sometimes they go the moment they're seen, because they're only just superficial, and the only reason they're still there is because they've never been seen.
It
But
reminds me of the process of seeing through doubt.
yes,
Like it's a form of doubt.
yeah, it is, yeah. And one
I
of the
think
things
what is
one of the things that Panilla says that's really interesting about doubt is that doubt can't be uh, I forget the word she used. Something like doubt can't be fixed. Doubt can't be doubt can't be corrected, but it can only be, oh God, I've forgotten what she said now. It can only be dissipated. Um, it's like it's not something that you can surgically remove.
Mm.
I have to go and read it again, but what she said, but I know the feeling, but I can't remember the words. Mm.
Where did doubt come from?
For me, it comes up as like Why am I feeling this way? Oh, I'm stuck in self again. I have to look. That's how it comes up for me.
And that immediately says to me that you're attempting to fix something. So I would like it to be, oh, there's selfing happening. Isn't that interesting? I wonder where that comes from. That's to me a healthy attitude. But the idea of, oh, I'm stuck again, I better fix this, that's not the right road to go down. That's just going to reinforce it, if anything.
Because there's a fixer and there's something wrong. Is that why?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And I think there is, as you said, you have a strong belief that there is a path, and at the end of this path, there is kind of no more reactivity, no emotion, some kind of bliss, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I would question it a little bit.
Yeah, it's a projection into the future as well. Yeah.
Just questioning this state of no emotion or absence of this imagination.
Even if you just hang on to the idea that what is here now is where some resolution might happen. What needs to be fixed, which is about the future, is not going to work. Because you're not even in the now, you're in the future, you're in a fantasy world.
Yeah, put the words doubt and clarity up on a board in front of you. Okay, can you visualize that?
Mm-hmm.
Does either of those words, doubt or clarity, point to anything in actual experience in this moment right now?
No. No. And then you're just left with this.
Right. It's all you ever have.
And one, I think what is useful, for example, if I tell you, you are a horse or you are a cat, do you have any reaction to it?
No.
No, because it's obvious to you that has nothing to do with you. But if I say something else, you have a reaction, that's an emotional reaction, that's a proof that there is something in your mind that still believe it or hold as belief, without judging, just as a fact, you know. And then you just, okay, interesting. There is some part of me who still believe that I am unworthy, that this or positive or negative, you know. But the main importance in this to me is to really understand that it has nothing to do with people outside. Is to withdraw completely the cause from people around you, because it makes life so much easier and you can explore very deep more easier. And I think
Right.
this is already huge if you can already see and disentangle yourself from what other people are saying. They will affect you, but I'm saying they will affect you, but it's not really them, you see. And when you can see this and really feel, oh shit, this emotion is in me. You know, it's happening here. And there it's, I don't know what's happening there, but this is, and you can just, you stop being obsessed about the world and what people do and what people think and what people write in this book and illumination or what awakening is that to see, okay, so I have to take care of this. And it's I think it's a very interesting movement.
So all of this stuff, what we're talking about is the separation between sensation and thoughts, concepts. So if somebody was to tap you on the cheek like that, you could say quite clearly, you could say, there is a sensation happens. Right? If somebody were to slap you quite hard across the face, what would be the difference between that and the tap? What would be the difference?
I just thought of something naughty, but anyway. Yeah, just a story about it.
Yeah. So, well, there would still be a sensation, but it would be a bigger sensation, wouldn't it? Now, if you see it as a bigger sensation because they slapped you quite hard, and they slapped you hard enough to leave a red mark, say, right? If you described it impassionately, you would say there's a pretty big sensation. If you were to use normal social language, you might even describe it as pain. But as soon as you use the label pain, you add to it a whole lot of other implications. And as soon as you go, that should not have happened, you've gone from pain to suffering, because they should not have slapped me induces a whole lot of extra stuff to that, right, on top of the sensation. So it changes the nature of the sensation, and it becomes painful, and it becomes wrong, and it becomes, do we punch them back, or how do we respond to that kind of thing? But that's all additional to the sensation, right? In reality, all there is a different sensation. One is much more intense than the other. But with the really intense one, we will add to it a story about pain and the wrongness of it, that it should not have happened, and etc. And then we respond to that story. And so what we're talking about here is really separating the basic sensation from the response to all the additional stuff that turns up for it. Right? So when somebody says you're ugly or beautiful or whatever, there is just sound. The additional stuff is what you think about that, and then how you respond to that. And how you respond is both in thoughts and in feelings. There are sensations in the body with stories attached to them. And if it's a good one, you kind of get a bit puffed up. And if it's a bad one, you get a bit down the other way. Yeah. So all through life, everything, every day, all day, every day, we have experiences that are actual experience, and then we have experiences that are added to the actual experience. And the first experience is always just sense input. And the second experience is what we overlay on top of that, what Pernilla calls post-it notes on reality. They're the additional things, and that's where all the hurt, that's where all the suffering, that's where all the pain, and that affects us physically as well. Oh boy, it affects our health. That can leave us living all day full of stress hormones, and what does that do to us? If we do it for long enough, we end up with cancer or something. So it's not insignificant, but it is not mandatory. The sense input stuff is mandatory. The additional stuff is optional. Well, at least that's one way to describe it. It's not actual like that, but yeah, sometimes it's not optional because it's conditioned into us. It's ingrained and embedded.
And Vince, can there be a very natural response, the body responding in a protect without any thought, like?
Of course, yes, yeah. Yeah, there's that primal part of our brain at the top of the spinal cord, that survival bit there, that will cause us to jump away from a snake, whether it's a snake or a bit of hose pipe in the grass. That will cause us to avoid danger, for sure. And we'll react without thought with that stuff. We'll react before thought with that stuff. Right, so you walking through the grass and you see a snake and it turns out to be a bit of hose pipe. There's no way you could have not jumped away from it thinking it's a snake. because you didn't think it was a snake. You reacted to the sense input. And interestingly, that's an interesting one, because babies are not afraid of snakes. Somehow we've all learned to be afraid of snakes, even if we've never experienced them. But yeah, but we do, but that part of the brain operates before thought. So sure, yeah, that happened. And a lot of people in society, this is really interesting, a lot of people in society actually operate from that part of their brain more predominantly, more so than the frontal cortex, right? So the conservatives, the right-wing extremists, they're operating from that emotional part of the brain. They're operating from survival mode all the time. And so there's no thinking there. They can't control what they do because it's a pure emotion, survival. And that's because they've been brought up in an authoritarian atmosphere where decisions were made for them. They never got to calculate anything. They always just had to obey.
Yeah, I just thought John's exploration was really interesting. I think I might have been exploring it from a slightly different, maybe we're in different places, because he was saying about it generated a sort of self in him again that he kind of contracted. And when he was talking, I was remembering lying down on the bed earlier, and I had to realize I was torturing myself with the story of what happened at the job and how the mistreatment happened. And I could see it clearly when David was talking to him. Oh, so I was doing that for myself lying down earlier on. And then I had to admit to myself that I was doing it to myself when it happened in the moment
Yeah.
as well. And then I was back to John's question, but hold on, like, it feels like, something's happening. There's a response. And yeah, I might say, well, if I could just move one step to the left, I could have avoided the whole thing. It would have been happening to something else, but it was happening to a me. And maybe it's then the future question, when you're enlightened or fully enlightened, do you just see snakes as ropes and you don't jump out of the way? Or is there still response, but maybe there's nobody responding? And I'm conceptualizing it now, but if there's a sense, well, I'm responding, well, then there's some work to do.
Yeah. And one can follow the other two. I mean, you can jump out of the road of the snake, whether it's a snake or a hose pipe, before thoughts turn up, and then thoughts can turn up saying, "Oh, you're an idiot. It's only a bit of hose." So that can follow easy enough.
But I think it's more confusing than this. Because let's say you're on a road and you see a snake and you run away. And after you are safe at home and you say to people, there was a snake on the road. But the thing is, there is no way you can have a confirmation that it was a real snake. So was it a snake? Was it a road? Who knows? The only fact that you have is you have a story about you were on this road and there was an emotional reaction. And there's nothing wrong with that. Who cares if it's a snake or a rope? There is an emotional reaction. It's fine. You run away or you kill the snake. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
It's
matter
fine.
at all.
Like if it's a positive emotion, it's always fine. We don't resist those. But it's the story we tell ourselves after the negative one. But if it can just happen cleanly, it's as clean as a positive one. There's no problem. And it's back to conditioning, because like my conditioning is slightly different than others. I know snakes have been around them a long time, and if I see a snake, I go, "Oh, okay, it's a corn snake, it's a ball python." If it's one of them, I pick it up. If it's a Gaboon viper, I run a mile away. So it's a nuanced reaction depending on our conditioning.
Exactly. But you see, what you bring is very interesting, because we are kind of experience. It's kind of a pattern, right? It's a habit. So if people come to you and they say nice thing to you and you bring in them and you say, "Oh, thank you," and you start to kind of give this pleasure outside, entering this because it's positive, so you don't question anything. So yeah, he's a really nice people. He's telling me I'm beautiful, so it's a great person. You call him off and everything, it's fine. But you really do the same with people who say nasty thing. The mechanism will be the same. The cause will be outside. So you can, I think it's not clear what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is you can do it when people come to you and say a positive thing and you feel like you are expanding. Well, the expansion is in you. So bring it also in you. It's not only about negative thing, it's both. Own everything that is in you. Take responsibility of not a
Yeah,
good
it's a
word, but
package. It's a package deal. It's two sides of a coin. You can't have one without the other. One's not good and the other's bad. They're both. It's a package deal.
Yeah.
Second question. Why do I look up when I think?
Yeah, that's a good one. Have you ever come across NLP, neuro-linguistic programming?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's really an interesting one. You can tell. So yes, you'll not only look up when you think, but you look down when you feel. And if you look, I forget the exact one, but if you look right, you're accessing memory, and if you look left, you're creating a new thought thing. Yeah. So that's something that just happens. Yeah. So yeah, you can tell when people are thinking because they always look up when they're thinking. Yeah. So
I
if
was
somebody
trying to.
tell me your experience about something and they look up, they're not accessing memory. They're thinking about it.
Mm.
Go on,
No,
sorry.
that question came up in relation to distance. So because someone said, how close are you to thought? So then if I'm looking up, I feel like the thought's over there. I'm doing the seeing, therefore there's distance, and then what's seeing?
If you were looking up when you were doing that, all that was happening in thought. You weren't accessing memory and you weren't accessing current experiencing. You were thinking about it. And this is a big trick because this is what happens. People take thinking about things to be the actual thing. They get confused between thinking and reality. They take thinking as reality. And this is really common. Although we do a lot of this. So people think that they're relating to that actual tree, but they're not. They're relating to their idea of the tree.
When I do that, John, and I just did it again there. When I do that, looking up, it feels like there's a resistance. There's just resisting. It feels like resistance. It's the only way I can describe it.
I think because the sense of space, of geography, I don't know how you said it in English, but the location, it's contained within the thought. Like for example, take the thought apple, okay, and take the thought elephant. Yes, John? Take both of them in your mind, right? Just hold both of them. Where is the thought apple and where is the thought elephant? If you have to point, right? Where?
Yeah, apple, elephant.
Okay, so apple is in the right and elephant is on the left.
Yeah.
Right? But do you agree that thought is not a space thing?
Correct.
There is not localization of anything. You agree?
Mm-hmm.
So when a thought appears, the localization it's contained, it's a quality of thought. It
I
always
see.
appears that it is somewhere, even when you sleep, that is not happening anywhere, but it is a quality of the appearance of the phenomenon of thought. So that's why, maybe because the body, if I think of an apple and I say here, I point it physically, but if I don't point, my eyes will maybe go, okay, I see the apple, okay, I see the elephant. But I'm not talking about sight, and I'm not talking about physical space. I'm only talking about the conceptual dimension. So thought seems to be localized and have different size. Size is the same. How big is the thought elephant, and how big is the thought apple? It doesn't really mean anything, because a thought in itself has no size. So size and location are quality in the phenomenon of thought. I mean, it sounds very conceptual, but I'm feeling I'm feeling that it points to something actual. I don't know if it's the same for everyone.
Yeah, it's very experiential. No, I'm with you.
Okay.
Would it be okay if I added something to what Dennis just said? Well, that was just about, because I did NLP, was just about the nature in which you think. So if you're more like have a proclivity to thinking more visually, then you look up. But when people do more internal dialogue, they actually look down. So it might be just the nature of the thoughts and whether you have more visual thoughts or think more in dialogue. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I'm more of a dialogue person.
That's comes up a lot with people with social anxiety spend a lot of time looking down because they tend to do a lot of internal dialogue. So they don't look at people.
Cool.
But it just made me think when Dennis said there's a resistance to looking up, it actually could be maybe I'm not as much of a visual thinker.
Because it's a lot more nuanced than what I was saying. Yeah. Okay, I've just stuck a picture of that face in the chat. Oh, it's a bit cut off too, but anyway, you get an idea of it, yeah. And like everything else, it's just a guide, it's not, there's nothing black and white about it. And of course there are variations of it.
I was just trying to get to the what is seeing that. Why do I think I'm at the center of thought?
Well, what comes to mind is that it's where most of your sense organs are in the head. And so it's another illusion, but all of the sense organs send signals to the brain, and it's the brain that interprets things. And I'm presuming that that's the same thing with thought. It's like a sense organ in the sense that it's interpreted from a whole lot of things, but because all that happens in the brain, not that you feel it, the brain hasn't got nerves in it, but somehow that seems to be the perspective from which everything is experienced. So that's I don't really know the answer to that.
Well, adding on that is a cognitive dissonance of when a child learns here and there, there's a cognitive dissonance that comes up because the child now knows I'm here. I am here and everything else is over there. Well, if I am here, I can see my hands, I can see my feet, I can see my body. Why can't I see me? Why can't I see I? And this cognitive dissonance that comes up from that is solved by, whoa, I'm in here behind the eyes. That's why I can't see me. That's where the sense of location comes from. And it goes back to here and there. If I tell you, with what David was telling you, if I tell you to imagine an elephant 10 feet from you, and then I tell you to imagine an elephant 100 feet from you, you are going to visually represent that elephant 10 feet from you, very large in thought and very small in thought for the elephant. That's just, you create distance, that fiction I was talking about, and you create it the same way in reality. The same way you do it when you imagine is what you're doing in reality. Distance is a learned fiction. But that cognitive dissonance that a child learns, they have to be located in here. Otherwise, they can't process, I'm here, but I can't see me. That's the theory with it. And it's not my theory, by the way. That's some of those shrinks that study this stuff. You follow what I'm
Well,
saying?
Paul, you
Yeah.
just rock my world just now. Thank you. I love it.
I'm going to say this again. The Direct Path by Greg Good is about 100 or probably about 100 direct experience exercises, just stuff we're playing around with right here in here. And if you take your time and go through this book, exercise by exercise, it will blow your mind away. By the time you get through this, the sense of agency is kind of blown away, and the sense of control, and a lot of the stuff we talk about in here is at least severely weakened to the bed. It's probably one of the that I'm gonna blaspheme here and say this is better than the Fetter model. And I'm going to get heat on that, I know.
Cool, thanks. I read that book maybe like 20 years ago, or ages ago, but it didn't
Well,
click for me.
he says in the beginning, he says, there's 3 ways to do it. You can just read through the book. He says, you're not going to get much that way. He says, you have to stop and take each exercise, maybe 1 a day or 2 exercises at the most, and let them sink in, process, and then move on. And it makes all the difference in the world.
Sweet.
And Greg Good did an interview over at one of the groups one time, and he said, don't just read it like a book. Do it exercise by exercise. Let everything sink in, because this stuff takes time to sink in.
Cool.
I've just ordered a Paul. We'll be here Tuesday.
What'd you say?
I've just ordered it. It'll be here Tuesday.
Okay, good deal. It can't hurt you, I'll tell you that for sure. I mean, you'll get something out of it. It forces you to look at experience, which is what we do in here as best we can. He's more like a laser focus with it, just forcing you to look at actual experience and separate it from thoughts about experience, which is what this is all about.
Yeah, it really kicked off for me the other day with Scott twisting the hand thing, and I was like, oh, this stuff is interesting, and this is curious. And this whole session didn't go as I expected it. This is all direct pointing, looking in the moment, what you're experiencing now. So I imagine that book is just going to be endless amounts of that. Like you said, take 1 a day and just look.
Yeah.
I've got a whole lot of those exercises on my website as well. Although some of them can be polished, but they're there like that. A lot of the ones that are done at LU are there.
What's your website, Vince?
It's the number one NES one NESS .info.
Thanks.
And I'd appreciate any feedback you might give me from Dennis. Anything that doesn't make sense or is too much or not enough, anything like that. Yeah, give me feedback on. It's a constant work in progress, and there's a lot of work to do left on it. And yeah,
Will do.
Vince, you wanted to make those sessions very on the ground and not spiritual. And I want to add to this that today I was with my family on the beach, and we are having a good day. And it really come up to me, like, we speak about this exploration, this perception, and all of this. I mean, I love it, And I'm looking up, who knows why, And and it really come to me that finally what really matters in all of this, it's to be at the quality of peace that I'm having in the moment, and the kindness, really, that I have for myself or for others or for whatever, And ultimately, this is the only scale that I really have to measure anything, if measurement is needed at all. And I think this is very near, it's very concrete. And sometimes we can get lost into this, this kind of the quest of healing, the quest of dissolving experience, the quest of this, the quest of that. And we forget that we do all of this to feel at peace, to feel tenderness, to feel, and I just think that it's good to remind us of that.
So when you called me ugly, you didn't mean it. I knew it. I knew it, David.
Well, Vince calls cow's asses ugly. I worked in a dairy for years and years. Cow's asses are actually beautiful after a while. That's white gold money right there, buddy. It's all a question of perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think anybody heard that, Paul.
I hear it all.
It's a bit of an Australianism, that one, I think. That's a pretty common term for. Well, actually,
yeah, it's like it up here too. Your horse's ass.
Yeah.
Actually, horse's ass is more of a personality insult than it is an ugly insult up here, but doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess there's some energy here, so I guess I'll speak. Yeah, I guess to this healing journey, this like idea of like a healing journey. Like no matter how far it seems to get in terms of like seeing through like a separate self. Not that I think I've gotten anywhere or I've like totally seen. I don't know. And the sense here is that there's still like an attempting to like fix something that's deeply wrong. And then when, like even there's a big reaction to like speaking for some reason because there's the belief that like there's something deeply wrong here. Um, but here's the thing, here's the trick of it. Like if I adjust the aperture slightly and like I look at it differently and I don't see the story, suddenly it's gone. And that very same sense of like there's something deeply wrong, oh no, it's just peace. And that just makes me question everything. Like what? Like what do you do with that? Like what am I gonna fix? And then it comes back and the reaction is there again. And I'm like, what is this made of? Like, what the hell? Like, this doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, I don't know if I'm like spiritual bypassing or something, or if yeah, if everything I think is there just isn't there in the way I think it is, which is definitely true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's all I got.
So Brian, it's that that both of those things exist is something you experience, eh? You experience
Yeah,
you can experience that something is wrong, and then you can experience peace. And as you say, it just takes that thing that you're describing as an adjustment of the aperture to do it. That's
yeah,
a great description. I like that. It's a shift in perspective, isn't it? So so
yeah.
so why does the one that causes problems exist at all, or as much as it does? Why is that one still there? Why has that not gone away and the other one there all the time? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I'm asking
Yeah,
as well. It's like, why is that still there? Why is the problem still showing up?
right.
Why
Because
can't it go away?
yeah. So let's not talk about it as a problem. Let's just talk about it in a impassionate, descriptive way to start with, so that we don't add issues to what we're doing.
Yeah.
So there it is. How did that one get there in the first place? Do you see how that one evolved? The one
Yeah.
where there are
Like
so-called,
it
yeah,
built up these stories and
yeah. So where
through
do they?
childhood and traumas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got it right. Okay, so they're conditioned,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And let me say that conditioning is pretty strong. It's
Yeah.
it was
Oh,
it was 100% every waking moment from the moment you were born through to when you started to change it or attempted to change it. Right. So it's deep, it's big,
yeah.
and it will be there until it's not anymore.
Hmm.
Right. So when you can shift the aperture and experience that peace, each time you do that, you're going to weaken the old conditioning and strengthen the new conditioning.
Hmm.
Right? So you could look at it
Yeah.
as a chore to be done in that nature, but
Hmm.
it's not necessarily that just that way. It may well be that there are what what Penella calls a toxic starting point. There may be a belief deep down that all of that bad shit rests on, and that belief
Yeah.
gets triggered on a regular basis, and the consequence is that there's a lot of experience of that negative side. unpleasant
Yeah,
side.
there's
Yeah.
that dysregulated nervous system, and it's just like it's just the whole thing gets thrown off.
Yep. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is there's a coming back from that quite easily if it's just looked at the right way or the story is. But there's also the sense like there must be like it's yeah, there must be that core belief or something that's driving it because otherwise it wouldn't just keep doing that persistently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to
That's what my
uncover.
Yeah, that's my my intuition tells me that yeah, there's something down there that is keeping that alive, that side of things alive. And that's something that you need to work on. Um, Remove that and all of the other things that rest on it will topple like a row of dominoes. Um,
Yeah.
but I do
Yeah, that's the feeling.
movement in you. I mean, that nervous laugh that you had, I've only heard you do that once today, and you used to do it on a regular basis. So, things have improved for you, even though you might feel a bit uptight when you're talking, that's nowhere near as nervous as you used to be. So things have
No,
changed.
true, true, true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still the sense of like, oh, I need to fix something. But that's also just, yeah, I don't know. It's so fleeting. I just don't know if there's something that I need to be doing that I'm avoiding. That's really, yeah, that's really the sense sometimes that I'm like avoiding
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
kind of core
That's part of
trauma or
that
something.
inherent thing that there's something wrong, right? So, and I've heard you say a couple of times about fixing this. Right. So one thing I want you to take away from the meeting today, and I want you to write it down, and I want you to tell yourself at least 10 times a day, right, that there is nothing wrong and there is nothing to fix, right? Attempting to fix things is you having a fantasy about the future. And there's no
Mhm.
way you're gonna do anything other than fantasize when it comes to that kind of thing. So the way
Yeah,
of course in the background, there's no doubt about it, in the background there is this idea that we want that to end, right? That we want to
yeah,
experience the good stuff a lot more, right? But leave it in the background. It's not the foreground stuff. So it's not our intention to fix anything, and it's not our intention to see that unpleasant stuff as wrong, even though that again will be there. So you just push it into the background, and and the path you want to go down, just imagine it as a dividing, you come along this path and you've got this Y intersection, and if you go to the right, that's the one where you got to fix things, right? But if you go to the left, what you're looking at is not fixing things. It's not a focus on the future. What it is a focus on now, on
mm,
this, on what is here,
mm,
on what, not why or how, but what. And so
yeah,
you want to move to the left and look at what actually exists, right? And then when you start looking at it, you get into the technique where you want to look at what is sensation and what is added to the sensation in the form of thought and stories. Right now, you don't want to do anything about them. You just want to notice. This is a trick, see? Because as soon as you try and do something with it and you say, oh, that's a bad story, I don't want it, you back off down the right-hand path, the wrong one. Right. So you got to keep on telling yourself, move left, where you're operating, the right brain operates the left side of your body. So you want to be in the right brain, not the left brain. The left brain is the critical one. That's going to send you down the right path. You want to move onto the left path, which is the other side of the brain. So they're inverted. Yeah. Anyway, so you're just looking at what exists. What is there? There is sensation, and there is stories that hang off the sensation. And so you want to move as close as you can
Yeah.
to the sensation. Get into that,
Mm.
feel that sensation. Where is it in the body? What does it feel like? And so on. And you just notice the stories that appear, but you don't engage with them. You notice what they're about, but you don't let them seduce you into chasing them down some rabbit hole, because that's just back to trying to fix things again.
Yeah.
Right? What you just want to do is notice what actually exists.
Mm.
If you can separate sensation from the stories by approaching the sensation, those stories will fall off. And as a result of that, you'll start to see what is underneath it. So the first thing that you get to, right, that feeling, and when you get to the sensation part of it, the sensation will actually dissolve, but it will reveal the next thing that's underneath that, what triggered
Yeah.
it. And then you do the same procedure again at the next level. So, and if you start to feel fear, right, or let's put it this way, there's a bit of a hierarchy. So on top there might be anger, underneath that'll be fear,
Mm.
underneath that could be terror. That's when you get really, really uptight about going there. You'll find that your mind will come up with all these excuses not to go there. You'll have to go and do something, wash the car or have a meal or watch a movie or something, pick up your phone. All those distractions will come up. But if you get through the terror part, then underneath that you're going to find things like shame and guilt, right? And so that's the stuff that you want to be able to just reveal, nothing more than reveal it. As soon as you reveal it, it dissipates. It'll go away, right? And if you have trouble doing that by yourself, you need to have somebody to help you do that. But essentially, you've got the tools there in what I've just told you to investigate it, see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Vince. That's super useful. And that the sense is also just that um that terror was coming up today when I was just inquiring, like, who would I be without like the thoughts? Because there's a sense that just something was very involved in the thoughts.
Yeah.
And definitely that terror started to come up, like, well,
Like
who
it's
am
like
I without the
annihilation.
thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, even if I've seen it before, like for some reason, it's just it's just that gravitational pull that tries to
That's it. Yeah.
come back in or whatever. But um, yeah, so thank you. I really appreciate that. That's useful and it's direct, and I can sit with this, and yeah, really appreciate that. Yeah. And the sense is what I was going to say is that, yeah, it's the conditioning also, because it's the strong sense is that when the nervous system gets thrown off like that, it's like I remember just the things that my mother said to me repeatedly or was afraid of, or the sense of having her around. And yeah, it's that fear. That fear is familiar, and it's it was put there by repetition, and yeah,
Yeah. It's great. You can see how it happened. Yeah, that's a big one.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so appreciate it. Thank you.
You can also see that if you see how it happened, you can also see how it can be undone.
Yeah, same way. Yeah. Yeah, repeatedly seeing it's okay just to be with this. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, well, it's 8:30 here. We've been going for 2.5 hours. And it feels like breakfast time to me. If anybody's got something, we'll wind up, eh? As always, been really good. Yeah, illuminating.
Great. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye for
Cheers, everyone.